Well, I got this new lathe, and I don't know a lot about lathes. This is a Baileigh 1022 variable speed, and I kind of like the lathe, but I've had some issues with it. It's got a forward and reverse screw, which I like. It's got an A, B, and C for the lead screw. I wasn't real sure exactly how that worked, but just recently I was having a lot of threading problems, and I went ahead and took the gears off in the back, and I spun the gear around with my finger. You see that gear there goes to the lead screw, and I put a mark on the gear, and I also put a mark on the lead screw. And I found out that if I'm in the A position, I spin the gear one time, the lead screw spins around one time. Now in the B position, I spin the lathe around, the gear around one time. The lead screw spins around two times. Now in the C position, I have to spin the gear around twice to get the lead screw to spin around once. So now I know what that does. The cover on the shows how to set the gears. Okay, look at 10, I don't know if this shows up or not, but 10 threads, you put a nothing there, I'll put a H, a 40 here, a 40 there, and a 50 there, and then the 80 with nothing over here on the side. The only problem is 40 and a 40, they did not give me two 40s. I have a 40 and a 45. Nowhere on here does it use a 45. So anyway, I just thought I would go ahead and try the 45 instead of the 40. Well, as you can probably guess, it doesn't work. The threads don't come out right. So I had to sit down with a pencil and calculator and learn exactly how threading works. And for those of you that might be interested, like this lead screw of mine has 8 threads per inch. In other words, it's got to spin around 8 times to the chuck. Well, I have to think about that for a minute. I probably missaid that. Every how many times the chuck spins around and the lead screw spins around 8 times, that's how many threads per inch that you have. In other words, if the lead screw turns 8 times and the chuck here spins around 10 times, well, you're going to have 10 threads per inch, because the lead screw is going to move the threading tip 1 inch, and every how many rounds this makes, it's going to give you that many threads. So I sat down and I figured out a whole new set of threads using different gears. As a matter of fact, it's even quite easier than the ones that they give. I found out by just using the same bottom gear, pretty much. Let's see, I don't know if I can get close enough. I have 40 in the 45, none in the 3 position, and then number 4, I have a 64, doesn't matter. 4 is going to be an idler. And the one they call L is the one on the lead screw. Then I use one of 2 positions, A or B. C position will cause the chuck to spin so many times to the lead screw that it puts a mighty fine thread. So I really haven't measured those. But anyway, just take a look at this. By just changing this top gear, well, I match up a 40 to a 75, and that gives me 30 threads if I'm in A. If I switch over to B without changing anything, I have 15 threads per inch. Alright, I can just change the number 2 gear to a 70, drop 5 teeth, and now I drop 2 teeth in the A position and 1 tooth in the B position. In other words, in A, I now have 28 threads per inch and 14 threads per inch in the B. I drop another 5 on this top gear and I bring it down to 65, and I get 26 threads per inch on the A, 13 threads per inch if I shift to B, and the same way on down until I get down to where I have a 40 and a 45. And right now at 40 and 45 I'm looking at an 18 and a 9. And again, I wrote down I do not have 240s, so I can't lower it down to a 40, and I'll pursue that sometime. But 18 and 9 are less than what I really need at the moment. I needed 20 gears, 20 teeth. So when I got down to this arrangement here, now I can cut 20 threads per inch. 20 threads per inch is what I needed to take my router cap and screw on this shaft. So I cut the 20 threads. This little camera's just not going to focus too well. So I cut the 20 threads, screwed the cap on that. I had to bore out the inside, and it had to be bored at an angle roughly 101 degree. So I've offset my compound to match that angle so that I could just run the compound in while the boring bar was cutting out on the inside to match the chuck deal right here. So now I have made a cutter, and all this is to go in and to use my lathe to be a milling machine without having a vertical attachment. I'm kind of limited right now on stuff to use with my lathe because I just got it. I haven't acquired many tools yet. I did pick up a chuck that mounts into, where's my chuck? Okay, it's buried under here, under some junk. So I did go to Harbor Freight Tools and pick up a cheap chuck. It works fine. Those are my gears, and I do have some of these other tools that came with the lathe, but I don't have very much yet that I have acquired. The tool holder is a kind of non-standard compound here. I did buy a quick change tool holder, but it will not mount on because there is no T-slot in the compound. And I bought that before I got the lathe, so I really didn't know there was not going to be a T-slot. And one other thing, there is no thread gauge here. So I'm using the method that they say in the lathe here. When you engage the half nut here, you run it all the way in, stop the lathe. You're supposed to be able to reverse it and run it back out, but I'm not really comfortable leaving the tool bit in when I reverse it. So usually I do kind of a compromise here. I do what is normal. I set the cross to 0. So when I get to the end of the thread and I stop it, I back out around. Then I reverse it till I back out of the threads, and then I can reposition the cross slide back in the right position, add a few more thousandths to the next cut, and then run it back in forward. It works fine, but I don't like the stopping and the reversing, so I'm going to be working on finding a thread gauge. Now, when you get these Chinese things, you usually got to make it into your lathe anyway. So, I just found out also that if you run the tailstock out too far to drill a hole, it won't stop. I mean, it just runs right on out until it falls out. That's right. There's no stop on the end of it. I may make a stop and put on the end of it, because I don't really like it falling off at inopportune time. So that's something else I will work on. This thing had a little door that goes over the chuck with a switch, and you raise the door up, cuts the lathe off. I guess this is one of these safety things, keep your hand out of the chuck, but it was actually in the way more than it was helpful. So I took it off. My lathe doesn't have that. It also had a switch here underneath the bottom, so if you open this up to get to the gear, it will not run. Yeah. Again, that's not very useful, and it sure is a pain in the butt. So I took it off. So now I have no safety gears on there, thank God. And I was usually running it without the cover on there, which is not the best thing in the world, but I don't stick my fingers in there, and I don't have any kids or anything running around. And as soon as I get all my junk out of the way and get kind of organized, I'm going to get it to where I will run it with the side cover on there. That's a good thing to do anyway. So anyway, basically this is a pretty good lathe. I mean, I like using it. I like the variable speed. Turn it on here for a minute now. Spinning it right here, especially now when you're threading. I mean, you can slow this thing way on down. It works real good. That gets it real slow, and the lead screw just kind of barely moves around, and that's good. I like that part. That's a very good feature. The speed is not constant. You put pressure on it and it speeds up, but it's nothing drastic. Let's see what else. Most people on the YouTube do not like this type of, get my pencil out of the way. Most people on YouTube do not like this type of tool holder, because you have to shim it. Not a real big deal if you use the same tools all the time, such as here's some 1/2 inch tools right here. I have a standard shim, works with all my 1/2 inch tools. These little cheap boring bars I just picked up,